Impossible, you should be dead. Alien girl shaken after scanning the human. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Commander Jason Wood stood in the gleaming reception hall of the Crimson Palace, the headquarters of the Tan Dominion. The mirrored walls reflected his muscular frame, his bare torso glistening with a light sheen of sweat from the mandatory physical assessment he just completed. Black trousers hugged his hips, secured by a polished black belt. He ran a hand through his slicked-back light blonde hair, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. Commander Wood, a Tan official, addressed him, her bright red skin contrasting with her ornate silver uniform. Your military record is exceptional. 3 tours in the Orion conflict, decorated twice for valor, and your psychological profile indicates unwavering loyalty. Jason maintained his stoic expression. I serve where I'm needed, ma'am. Indeed, she continued, her voice smooth and firm. And now you're needed in a rather unique capacity. She slid a data tablet across the obsidian table. You've been selected as personal bodyguard to Queen Nisara of the Tan Dominion during her extended diplomatic mission on Earth. Jason's eyebrows rose slightly. The Tan Queen, ruler of a star empire spanning 17 systems, coming to Earth. The implications were enormous. I'm honored, Jason said, trying to mask his surprise, though his mind raced. But the position is non-negotiable. The official cut him off. The Human-Tan alliance is still fragile. Having a human protector sends a powerful message of trust. Jason scanned the tablet. The assignment details were sparse, but the compensation was astronomical. After his dishonorable discharge from Earth Defense Force, a political move after he'd exposed corruption in the upper ranks, this opportunity seemed too good to be true. When do I begin? He asked, leaning forward. Immediately, the official replied. The Queen's transport arrives tomorrow. You'll be briefed on protocol tonight. Jason nodded, processing the information. The next morning, Jason stood on the landing pad atop the Crimson Palace. Dressed in his new formal uniform, a tailored black suit with subtle crimson accents marking him as royal security. The sleek, tan vessel descended through the clouds, its silver hull catching the morning sunlight. As the boarding ramp extended, Jason straightened his posture, preparing for what was ahead. First came a contingent of Tan guards, their red skin and silver armor creating a living queue. Then, she appeared, Queen Nisara. She stood tall and regal, her bright red skin luminous against her elaborate silver and black bodysuit adorned with gold emblems of office. Her long silvery hair cascaded down her back, and her striking blue eyes surveyed the reception party with cool assessment. Even from a distance, Jason could feel the weight of authority she carried. The Queen barely acknowledged the assembled dignitaries before disappearing into the palace with her entourage, leaving Jason standing awkwardly on the platform. Commander Wood, he heard from behind him. He turned to find another Tan woman approaching. For a moment, he thought the Queen had returned, but subtle differences became apparent. Though physically identical, bright red skin, silvery hair, and blue eyes. This woman wore a simpler version of the royal attire, her expression warmer, more approachable. I'm Lara, she said, extending a slender hand in the human custom of greeting. The Queen's proxy. I understand you'll be my primary security detail. Jason shook her hand, noting the strength in her grip. Commander Jason Wood, at your service. Lara smiled, revealing perfect white teeth against her crimson skin. The Queen is resting after the journey. She has a private meeting with your world leaders tomorrow. Today, however, I'm scheduled to tour your city's cultural district as a goodwill gesture. I hope you don't mind starting work immediately. Jason nodded. Not at all. As they walked toward the waiting transport, Jason couldn't help but notice how different Lara seemed from the Queen. She appeared to have a genuine curiosity about Earth and its culture, and something about her tone hinted at a subtle relief at being treated as a person, not just a royal proxy. I'll be happy to show you around, Jason said, offering his arm in a formal escort position. It would be my pleasure, Lara replied, her voice light, but with a hint of something deeper. The transport ride was short, and soon they arrived at Earth's Grand Cultural District. Jason escorted her through exhibits, all while maintaining a professional distance. But something in Lara's eyes, something he hadn't noticed before, began to make him question everything he thought he knew about her role and about the queen she represented. They were both so similar yet so different, and Jason found himself beginning to question his feelings, though he was determined to keep his focus on the job ahead. As Jason guided Lara through Earth's Grand Cultural District, he couldn't help but notice the way she reacted to the sights around her. Unlike the cool detachment he had expected from a royal proxy, she appeared genuinely fascinated. Her eyes widened at every new piece of art, every sculpture, as if she were seeing humanity for the first time with fresh eyes. They walked through a massive gallery filled with ancient earth paintings, each one a masterpiece of human emotion and creativity. Jason found himself explaining the history of each piece as they went along, trying to keep things professional, but a part of him couldn't shake the feeling that Lara was more than just a royal figure. She was different, more curious, more approachable. "This one," Lara said, stopping in front of a painting that depicted a group of revolutionaries breaking free from chains. "It resonates deeply with me." Jason looked at her, noticing the intensity in her gaze. "It's called Liberation," he said. "It was painted after the Third World Unity movement on Earth. It's about the struggle for freedom, for breaking the chains that bind us." Lara turned to him, her blue eyes searching his face. "Is that how freedom feels? Exhilarating, yet terrifying?" Jason thought for a moment. "I suppose it is," he said. "Freedom means making your own choices, but it also means facing the consequences of those choices." Lara nodded slowly, her gaze distant. "It's strange," she murmured, almost to herself. "I can feel the weight of that freedom in this painting, yet I don't truly understand it." Jason studied her carefully. There was something in her voice, a vulnerability that made him realize she wasn't just a proxy for the queen. She had her own thoughts, her own feelings. "How much choice do you have in your position?" Jason asked, unable to stop the question. Lara stiffened slightly, her posture changing. "I exist to serve the queen," she said firmly, though her voice lacked the authority Jason had expected. "My purpose is defined by her needs. I am an extension of her." Jason frowned. "But you're separate. You have your own thoughts. You're not just her." Lara's eyes softened for a moment before she turned her attention back to the artwork. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "but that's how my people see me. I am an aspect of her consciousness, not an individual." Jason's mind raced. "That's a lot to accept," he said softly. Lara chuckled, a soft, musical sound that surprised him. "It's more than you know," she said. "But I'm learning. Here, I get to see the world through my own eyes, not just the queen's. It's liberating." Jason's heart skipped a beat. Was she flirting with him? No, that couldn't be right. She was a royal, a proxy. Yet, there was something about her, something in her demeanor that felt different from anyone else he had ever met. The air between them seemed to shift. The usual boundaries of professionalism, of duty, were becoming blurred. He had to remind himself that his job was to protect her, not to get distracted by these feelings. As they continued through the exhibits, Jason found himself listening more to Lara's thoughts on art, on humanity, than to his own internal warnings. It was as if her words had unlocked a door in his mind that he hadn't known was there. They were walking through a section of the gallery when Lara stopped again, her fingers brushing over a small sculpture that depicted two figures intertwined, locked in an eternal embrace. "What does this one represent?" she asked, her voice soft. Jason stepped closer, his mind still processing everything she had said. "That one is called Eternal Bond," he explained. "It represents the connection between two souls, regardless of the hardships they face." Lara's eyes lingered on the sculpture, and then she looked at Jason, a new intensity in her gaze. "Is that what you believe in, Jason?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, caught off guard by the question. I believe in connection, yes," he said. "But it's not always easy to find." Lara smiled, a small, knowing smile that sent a thrill through Jason's chest. "I think you're wrong," she said softly. "I think you found it, whether you realize it or not." The moment hung between them, thick with unspoken words, and Jason's heart began to race. Was it possible? Was this connection between them something real, Something more than just duty? As Lara turned to leave the gallery, Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. This assignment, this mission, everything was becoming so much more complicated than he had ever anticipated. As the day passed, Jason found himself growing more and more intrigued by Lara. They toured more exhibits, shared small conversations about the art, the history of Earth, and the cultural differences between their worlds. Every word Lara spoke seemed to pull him further away from his professional duties, yet he couldn't quite bring himself to pull away. Something about her, her honesty, her curiosity, made him feel like he was seeing the world through her eyes. It wasn't just the art she appreciated, it was the simplicity of human emotions, the rawness that she found fascinating. Lara seemed to be fascinated by everything. The way humans interacted, the way they laughed, the way they lived. She asked questions, not just about the art, but about the way Earth's society functioned. It was like she was learning about humanity, about its essence, one piece at a time. As the evening came, they found themselves in the botanical gardens, a place designed to blend the beauty of both Earth and tan flora. Jason could feel the shift in the air. The cool evening breeze felt different in Lara's presence, more charged. "The flowers are beautiful," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper as she walked along a path lined with glowing plants. "They remind me of the ones on my homeworld, only softer, gentler." Jason watched her, feeling a strange pull in his chest. "Earth has a way of making things beautiful," he said, though his words felt distant, as if they didn't belong in the moment. Lara stopped walking, turning to face him. There was something in her eyes, something he couldn't quite place. "I know your people find it hard to trust us," she began, her voice low, careful. "But I think you're different." Jason wasn't sure how to respond. The words caught in his throat. He had always seen his role as a protector, a soldier. He had never been the one to cross boundaries, especially not with someone like her, a royal, a proxy. But Lara was not like anyone he had ever met. She wasn't just a queen's duplicate. She was a person, with her own thoughts, feelings, and struggles. "I'm not sure what you mean," Jason finally said, his voice softer than he intended. "You've treated me with kindness, respect, as if I'm just another person," she said, stepping closer. Not many people would do that. Jason felt a surge of warmth, and for a moment, the distance between them seemed to vanish. He wanted to say something meaningful, but the words wouldn't come. Lara reached out, her fingers brushing his arm lightly. The touch sent a shock through him, making his heart beat faster. "I'm not just the queen's proxy," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle hum of the garden's lights. "I am me, and I want you to see me." Jason took a deep breath, the moment stretching out between them. He could feel the weight of her words, the depth of what she was offering. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, standing under the soft glow of alien flowers, their paths intertwined in a way Jason hadn't expected. "I do see you," he said quietly, his voice rough. "I see you, Lara." She smiled, a small, genuine smile that made Jason's chest tighten. "Then maybe," she said, "we can start seeing where this path leads." For the first time, Jason wasn't sure of the answer, but he knew one thing. Whatever happened next, it would be different. They stood there for a moment longer, the silence between them comfortable, as if they had both just stepped into a new chapter, one that neither of them had anticipated. As the evening drew to a close, they returned to the palace, but the connection between them remained, hanging in the air like the fragrance of the flowers around them. Jason knew his mission had just taken an unexpected turn, and he wasn't sure where it would lead, but for the first time, he was willing to find out. The days that followed were filled with briefings, diplomatic events, and cultural exchanges, but Jason's mind was never far from Lara. Despite their shared professional focus, he couldn't shake the growing connection between them. Their conversations, while remaining appropriate for their roles, always felt more personal. Jason had never expected to form such a bond with someone from another world, especially someone like Lara. Her position as the Queen's proxy made it clear she wasn't just an ordinary individual, yet her curiosity, her openness, and the way she treated him as an equal made it impossible to keep things just professional. It was during a quiet evening at the embassy that Jason and Lara found themselves alone in one of the gardens again. The night was peaceful, the only sound being the rustling of alien trees and the occasional chirp from Earth's nocturnal creatures. Jason leaned against the stone railing, looking up at the stars. "It's different here," Lara said, standing next to him. Her voice was soft, almost contemplative. "I've been to many worlds, seen many things, but this is different." Jason turned to look at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "What do you mean?" he asked. Lara took a slow breath, her gaze shifting to the stars above. "The people here, the way they interact with each other. It's not just about survival or power. There's something more, something human about them. It's raw, it's real." Jason studied her for a moment, her words sinking in. "We're not all like that," he said quietly. "We've got our problems, our flaws. But I guess you're right. There's something about the way humans connect, despite everything else." Lara's eyes softened as she looked at him. "You don't give yourself enough credit," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You're one of the few who truly understands it. You've seen the good and the bad, yet you choose to see the potential in others. Not many are like you." Jason felt his chest tighten at her words. He wasn't used to being complimented, especially not like this. But there was something in Lara's eyes that made him feel seen, understood. For a moment, the weight of their positions, the expectations of their roles, seemed to disappear. "I'm just doing my job," he said, though his voice lacked the usual certainty. "I'm here to protect you, nothing more." Lara stepped a little closer, her presence warm despite the cool evening air. "And what if you want something more?" she asked, her gaze never leaving his. Jason's breath caught in his throat. The question was unexpected, and for a moment, he was unsure how to answer. He had never allowed himself to think beyond his duty, beyond the walls he had built around his emotions. But something about Lara made him want to consider it. She was more than just a royal, more than just a proxy. She was someone who, despite everything, had shown him a different side of the galaxy, one that wasn't just about power, duty, or survival. Jason started, but the words failed him. Lara didn't push. She simply looked at him, as though waiting for him to find his answer. After a long silence, Jason finally spoke. "Maybe I do," he admitted softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe I want more than just to protect you." Lara's lips curved into a small smile, but it was full of understanding, not amusement. She didn't say anything more. Instead, she turned her gaze back to the stars, her hand brushing lightly against his. The touch was brief, but it sent a jolt through Jason's body, making his heart race. The moment lingered, stretching between them like a thread of connection, fragile yet strong. "We'll figure this out," Lara said, her voice steady and calm. "One step at a time." Jason nodded, unsure of what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of possibility. The path ahead was uncertain, but he knew one thing. Whatever happened, it would no longer be just about duty. It would be about something deeper, something more. As they stood together, watching the stars, Jason felt like he was standing at the edge of a new beginning. And for the first time, he was ready to take the leap. The days grew into weeks, and Jason found himself in an unfamiliar rhythm. As the Queen's proxy, Lara's responsibilities were vast, and Jason's role as her protector evolved beyond just physical security. They continued to attend meetings, cultural exchanges, and diplomatic functions, but it was the quieter moments, those outside of official duties, that Jason cherished the most. Their connection deepened with every conversation, every shared look, every small gesture. It wasn't just the way she looked at him. It was the way she made him feel like he was more than just a bodyguard. She saw him as a person, not a soldier, and that was something Jason had never experienced before. One evening, after a long day of official events, Jason and Lara found themselves alone in one of the palace's many gardens. The night air was cool, the stars above shining brightly. Jason leaned against the stone railing, looking out over the palace grounds. Lara stood beside him, her presence quiet but steady. "Do you ever miss home?" she asked, her voice breaking the comfortable silence. Jason glanced at her, surprised by the question. "Home," he repeated. "Earth, I mean. Do you ever miss your world?" Lara continued, her gaze distant. "I know I'm not really from Earth, but sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever truly belong anywhere." Jason took a deep breath, considering her words. "I think we all feel that way sometimes," he said. "Like we're not really sure where we fit. But I guess maybe it's not about fitting in. Maybe it's about finding something that makes you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Lara turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. And do you feel that way here? With me? She asked, her voice soft but steady. Jason's heart skipped a beat. The question was unexpected, and yet, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I do, he admitted, his voice low. I never thought I would. But, yeah, I do. Lara smiled. A small, knowing smile that seemed to make the world around them fade away. Good, she said softly. Because I think I found something here too. Something I didn't know I was looking for. Jason felt a surge of warmth spread through him at her words. He had always been focused on duty, on protecting, on following orders. But now, standing here with Lara, he realized that maybe he was starting to care about something more than just his mission. Maybe he was starting to care about her. Lara, he began, but his words faltered as he tried to find the right ones. She reached out, her hand gently brushing his arm. You don't have to say anything, Jason, she said, her voice calm and reassuring. I know. And in that moment, Jason realized that he didn't have to explain everything. There was a quiet understanding between them, a bond that had formed over time, and it was enough. As they stood together, the cool night air swirling around them, Jason couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt ready to face it, whatever it might bring. For the first time, he felt like he had found a place where he truly belonged. The days that followed brought more official duties, but Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was slowly changing between him and Lara. Their conversations had deepened, moving beyond small talk about Earth's history and the latest diplomatic exchange. He found himself looking forward to the moments when they could speak without the pressure of protocol, when they could just be two people, sharing ideas and thoughts. The evening air had become cooler, the warmth of the day giving way to a soft breeze that carried the scent of the alien flowers that grew around the palace grounds. It was during one of these quiet evenings that Lara asked him to join her for a walk in the palace's private garden. Jason was always by her side, but tonight felt different, like a moment suspended in time. They walked side by side through the winding paths, the soft hum of the palace's distant technology blending with the gentle rustling of the trees. I've been thinking, Lara began, her voice carrying a thoughtful tone. About everything. About my role, the Queen's, about the expectations placed on us. Jason glanced at her, noticing the slight tension in her shoulders. What do you mean? He asked, slowing his pace to match hers. I was created to serve the Queen, to fulfill her duties, her obligations, Lara continued. But sometimes, I wonder if I've ever truly had a choice in anything. Jason stopped walking for a moment, turning to face her. You have a choice, Lara. You're more than just a royal proxy. You've proven that. Lara met his gaze, her eyes searching his face. But do I? Or am I just following a path set for me long before I was even born? Jason's heart tightened. He could sense the conflict within her, the uncertainty that had been there from the start. I don't know what it's like to live with that kind of burden, he said, his voice soft. But I do know that you're different. You think for yourself. You don't just follow orders. Lara gave a small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. Maybe, she whispered, lit by the soft glow of bioluminescent plants. The silence between them was comfortable but heavy, as if both were grappling with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Lara spoke again. Do you ever wonder if you're just doing your job, Jason? If there's something more out there for you? Jason felt a lump form in his throat. I've always done my job. I've never really thought about anything else, he admitted. But being here with you, it's different. I never expected any of this. Lara stopped walking again, turning to face him fully. Maybe that's the point, Jason, she said quietly. Maybe it's not about what we were meant to do, but about what we choose to do. Together. Jason's breath caught in his throat. Her words hung in the air between them, as fragile as the moment itself. Together, he repeated softly, the weight of the words settling in his chest. Lara reached out, her fingers brushing his hand, the touch light but full of meaning. Maybe the future is ours to decide, she said, her voice steady now. Jason didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. He could feel it, the change that had been building between them. He had come here to protect her, but somewhere along the way, he had begun to care for her in ways he hadn't expected. Maybe it is, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. They stood there, their hands brushing, the quiet of the garden surrounding them. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Jason felt ready to face it, whatever it might bring. As Lara's fingers tightened around his hand, Jason knew that whatever happened next, it would no longer be just about duty. It would be about something deeper, something that had the power to change everything. The days that followed their conversation in the garden felt like they were moving in slow motion. Jason found himself caught between duty and something he had never expected, the growing bond with Lara. Their connection was undeniable, and yet, he knew the complexity of their situation. Lara, as the Queen's proxy, had responsibilities and expectations that Jason could not ignore. But it didn't make the moments they shared any less real. They continued to spend time together, sometimes in the palace's quiet corridors, sometimes on the balcony overlooking the vast city below. Each time, Jason found himself drawn closer to her, though he fought the feeling. He had been trained for a life of discipline, of following orders. He couldn't afford distractions, not when the stakes were so high. But Lara was a distraction, one he couldn't easily shake. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of diplomatic meetings, Jason found himself standing on the balcony, looking out at the stars. The city lights flickered below, the hum of distant ships a soft reminder of the world beyond the palace walls. Lara appeared beside him, her presence familiar, but still unexpected in its own way. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice low, "about everything. About us." Jason turned to face her, his heart pounding in his chest. "What about us?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. Lara smiled softly, though it was tinged with something uncertain. "I don't know what to call this," she said, her eyes searching his face. "But I feel it too." Jason's breath caught. He had never thought he would hear those words from her. "You feel it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded slowly. "Yes. The connection between us. I can't deny it anymore." Jason's mind raced. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. He had always been in control, always the protector, always the one who kept his emotions in check. But now, standing in front of Lara, everything felt different. He felt different. "What does it mean?" he asked, finally breaking the silence. Lara stepped closer, her presence overwhelming in its quiet strength. "I don't know," she said softly. "But I think it means we don't have to follow the paths that were laid out for us. Maybe we can choose our own." Jason's heart skipped a beat. "Choose our own path," he repeated, as if the idea was something he had never considered before. Lara's eyes softened as she reached out, her hand brushing against his. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "We can decide for ourselves, Jason. We don't have to be defined by duty, by roles, by what others expect us to be. We can be something more." Jason looked down at her hand resting against his, the touch sending a jolt through him. For the first time, he wasn't just thinking about the mission, the protection he had been tasked with. He was thinking about something entirely different, the possibility of a future that wasn't tied to his past, the possibility of something with Lara. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I know I want to find out. With you." Lara smiled, a real smile this time, one that reached her eyes. "Then let's see where this path takes us," she said, her voice filled with hope. As they stood together on the balcony, the weight of their shared moment settling between them, Jason realized that for the first time in his life, he was truly free. Free to choose, free to embrace whatever came next. And for the first time, he was ready to face it, side by side with Lara. As the days passed, Jason and Lara's bond continued to grow. Their quiet moments, away from the eyes of others, became more frequent, and each one seemed to carry more weight than the last. The palace, usually bustling with officials and diplomats, now felt more like a sanctuary where they could explore this newfound connection. It wasn't just the words they exchanged, but the unspoken understanding that seemed to exist between them. They found comfort in each other's presence, a quiet reassurance that things were shifting in ways neither of them had expected. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lara's hand brushed against Jason's. She had become more open with him, no longer hiding her thoughts behind the facade of a royal proxy. "You know," she said, her voice light but thoughtful, "I never imagined I'd find someone like you." Jason turned to her, his heart beating a little faster. "What do you mean?" he asked. Lara smiled, her gaze steady and unwavering. "I've been surrounded by people my entire life, but they've always seen me as the Queen's proxy, not as me. You see me." Jason felt his chest tighten. "I see you, Lara," he said quietly, "for who you really are." She stopped walking, turning to face him. There was a softness in her eyes, a vulnerability that had always been there, but was now becoming more visible. "I don't know where this is going," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I do know that for the first time, I feel like I have a choice." Jason's heart swelled. He had always known that. Lara was more than just a royal figure, but hearing her say it, hearing her express that freedom, it changed something within him. "We both have a choice," he said, his voice steady. "And whatever happens, I'm here. With you." Lara reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his gently. "Thank you," she said softly. "You've given me more than I ever expected, more than I thought I deserved." Jason squeezed her hand, the warmth of the gesture filling him with a sense of peace. "You deserve everything, Lara. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to choose your own path." They stood there for a moment, the garden around them bathed in the soft glow of alien flowers, their scent drifting in the cool evening air. It was as if the universe itself had paused, allowing them a moment to truly connect. "Whatever comes next," Jason continued, "we'll face it together, no matter the challenges." Lara nodded, her eyes bright with emotion. "Together," she repeated, her voice filled with certainty. Jason couldn't help but smile. In that moment, everything seemed possible. The future, once uncertain, now felt like something they could shape together. No longer just the protector and the protected, but two people standing side by side, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. As they continued their walk, hand in hand, Jason realized that this moment, this connection, was something he had never imagined for himself. And for the first time, he felt that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. As Jason and Lara continued to explore their bond, the atmosphere around the palace seemed to shift. The once rigid structure of their interactions, defined by duty and formality, slowly gave way to something far more natural, something closer to friendship and mutual respect. Each day, they found themselves spending more time together, away from the eyes of the officials, in the quiet spaces where they could just be themselves. The moments they shared were simple, yet profound. Long walks through the palace gardens, shared meals where conversation flowed freely, and quiet evenings spent watching the stars from the balcony, each one feeling more like a step towards something they both knew was growing between them. One evening, as they sat on the balcony overlooking the vast city below, Lara turned to Jason, her eyes soft in the dim light. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. Jason glanced at her, sensing the weight of her question. "I think about it," he said slowly, "but I've never really had a clear picture of what it might look like. I've always lived in the moment, focusing on the task at hand, not worrying about what comes next." Lara nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the railing. "That's the thing about the future," she said softly. "It's always uncertain, always changing. But sometimes, I wonder what it would be like to choose my own path, to make decisions not based on duty, but on what I truly want." Jason felt a pang in his chest. He knew that feeling all too well, the desire for freedom, the longing to break away from expectations and create something of your own. "You deserve that freedom, Lara," he said, his voice low but firm. "You deserve to choose, just like anyone else." She looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "And you, Jason? What do you want?" Jason hesitated, unsure how to answer. He had never allowed himself to dream of something beyond his duty. But now, with Lara, everything felt different. "I want," he began, then paused, his words caught in his throat. "I want to find a future where we can be more than just what the world expects of us. I want to be with you, Lara, not just as your protector, but as someone who stands beside you, no matter what." Lara's eyes softened, and she reached for his hand, her touch gentle but sure. "I want that too," she said, her voice steady now. "For so long, I've been trapped in the role others set for me. But with you, I feel like I can be more. I can be myself." Jason squeezed her hand, a warmth spreading through him. "We can be ourselves, together," he said, the words feeling more real than anything he had ever said before. As they sat there, side by side, the stars above them seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself was acknowledging the change that was unfolding between them. The future was still uncertain, still full of unknowns, but for the first time, Jason felt a sense of peace. They didn't need to have all the answers right now. All they needed was each other, and the courage to face whatever came next, together. The city lights below twinkled in the distance, but in that moment, Jason didn't need to look at them. He had everything he needed right here, beside him. And that was enough.